They asked me to present my last book that was about the rise of algorithmic society and the territorial culture. So I try to synthesize everything as I can. Maybe it's not especially focused on museum, but I think that this umbrella will be useful to give a general idea about the discourse in which these problems are involved. So what is different in this book about the others? The difference is that I want to discuss about artificial intelligence with another approach. This is a cultural and creative one. Normally, only computer scientists and so on speaking about that. So what I have done is to use the lens of the culture to look at the problem. And look at the problem, starting from the culture, I know nothing. So I have to ask to a lot of to many colleagues to give me some lecture, to give me some books and so on, and try to study. So the COVID period was very useful for me because maybe this book doesn't exist without COVID because it was 2 years of reflection, you know. And I try to give you my idea that evolved about that. So the question, what is artificial intelligence? I have to start before to discuss about the role of culture, because I have to understand which kind of innovation is artificial intelligence and what does mean. So I am an economist, and in the last 20 years, I have done only measurement, number and measure. But this book is quite different. There is only reflection, only words, only narrative. And why? I don't want to use number. Because if you have to study uncertainty and complexity, the numbers doesn't work. So I think that tales are a very important feature, polysemy. So they give you the possibility to have a lot of perspective about the same problem. This is the concept of complexity. And tales again give you the chance to open to the possible, not the reality, the possibility of people and this dream. And in this sense, I stress these two concepts, narrative of the past and narrative of the future. What is it? This concept comes from one of my colleagues that is a demographer, so another one, because I have that discussion with a lot of scientists of different disciplines. And in this idea, the narrative of the past and the narrative of the future comes from the life cycle, you know. But I think it's very easy to underline the difference between human and machine. So the narrative of the past is the story of the algorithms that have to predict something, but based on the past. They want to predict the future, but the data from the past. So this is a replication, again, of the past. Culture is another story. Culture is imagination, is the space of the possible. This was the idea. So I try to understand the mechanism, which kind of innovation is, and I stress the idea, this is a tentative of definition of artificial intelligence. The economy says that is a new multidisciplinary techno-economic paradigm. It's not just innovation, change also the society completely. This is absolutely disruptive in innovation. And the other main point is that all disciplines converge. Everybody's speaking about artificial intelligence now. It's a fashion, it's a mood continuously. What is it? It's born of new science. This is data science, data science. So, but this is a story. It's a story of culture and creativity again, because the Algorithmic society is a narrative of the past, a story of creativity and counterculture. It's a story of 60. We are discussing about engineers that are not the engineers from Turin. You remember about Fiat and so on. They are hippie. And what they are doing is to think about everything. They use as unit of analysis something the economists never do it, because we have to define the analysis. We have to define the limit of our analysis. And so they're crazy and decide to speak about everything. And this is the story of the web. There is no limit to space and time. So, what changed in artificial intelligence? What changed in algorithmic society? Change everything. The system of value, data and research methodology, business product sector innovation works, it's the consequences. It's not the starting point, it's the consequences. The natural capitalism, yeah, Professor Ferrari has spoken about that, I know, at the beginning. This was one of my lecture that I have done by myself. I don't know him, absolutely, but I have studied that. So you can find some relation in my book about him. And what is the focus? The focus is about the relation among society, economy, culture, and I suppose we have finished the story. No, we have to put technology inside, and the thing are changed again. So what changed in the algorithmic society? I need 1 hour to speak about this slide, but I just to synthesize before and after. Just one things. Production before and communication. The lady before is speaking about communication. Why we don't speak anymore of production? In my department, I don't know how many courses on marketing exist. There is not a course of production anymore. I think how you can think about a stable economy speaking only about communication. You have to put something inside, please, because the uncertainty is rising in this way. And the story of human capital, we have discussed, I don't know, for many years from Florida and so on, about human capital, talent, and so on. And now, what about human capital? The creative people are poor. The young people that use computer and give information for free are prosumers. Please, we have to call the things with the right name. So I am PhD coordinator for a long time. So what I have to do is to change completely the way in which the PhD student have to study now. Because if the cause-effect method was my story, or the story of I know how many generations, now we have to change because we have two methods, because we use not data collection based on research, question, and so on, you need time. No, you have speed, you know. So you take data from the social network. Which kind of data? The statistician said that this raw material, so the results cannot be stable. There is many true, post-true, as Ferrari says. So the uncertainty is always more. Which kind of competitive advantages? Before we have theory and the capacity to do some model. Now, doesn't matter. You need computational capacity. Many. You need many. Because for do that, it's not only a problem of capacity, it's a problem of money. So, goes directly to our story. That is the relation between culture, society, economy, and technology. So we have discussed for a long time about the conservation and the enhancement of culture. I have studied this subject for many years, 20 years, something like that. So I've seen all the differences. We start with conservation and then economic enhancement of culture, the story of industrial district and cultural district and so on. And then creative city, creative industry, and the focus was on innovation. And then with the crisis of 2008, we go back to the social dimension. But what's happened now? that now there is not by one side conservation and by the other side enhancement. No, you have at the same time two things: the rise of technological enhancement and conservation of culture. So there is not a distinction, but it's come again together. And culture is at the same time a digital resource and a creative capacity, but it's also a tool for the protection of diversity and culture. So a light side and a dark side. I have to synthesize all these about opportunities, risk, and to construct a research agenda. I have seen that in this so interesting conference, many of these points are now something real, you know. So I write this book in 2020. There are only 2 years, no more, and everything changed. The debate now by the economists is much more on the opportunities. But the debate in the United States, for instance, there is a big group at MIT and so on that has very, very critics about that. But in Europe, we continue to discuss about 4.0 industry as the most important things, and Creative Hub and so on, and this is the right side. And the story of the risk is not so strong as it was in the place in the States where this kind of innovation was applied. So opportunities, I have no time to go in depth. I give you some idea, some general idea. The digital, physical, and virtual ecosystem. We use the word ecosystem now. They come from biology, but it's just, the difference is only that before you are discussing about district, then cluster, and now ecosystem. It depends what you want to stress. In economics, the word ecosystem means to stress the entrepreneurial dimension of the story. But I mean, is one of the perspectives that you can have. What I have seen, you can have, all these one are plays, creative plays, can be virtual plays also. And you have to combine that. But what is different, for instance, is the story of human geography. Again, I go back to the story of Florida and talent and creative people. But now, we are not discussing anymore about artists in New York City, where there is the concentration of the corporation on artificial intelligence that's not anymore in Silicon Valley, because the Silicon Valley remains just finance and marketing, but not innovation. The Star City, and so we have a new creative environment that was composed by managers, by business academics, not academics like me, but business academics is different, data scientists, venture capitalists, and the story of hackathon and so on. This is what means, not anymore the artist poor that's with a lot of dream and so on. This is a new trend. And then the digital and art and digitalization of heritage, and you know a lot of these things, because you see there are many cases in which the pieces are made by computer. So there is a composition. Until this point, the human manage the process. But until when? Because the legitimation of the computer activities exists yet. See what Christy is doing now, okay? And what about the creative sector? I stress three creative sectors that are much more important. Before we are discussing about creative sector, we discussing about books, museum, art, and so on. Now, video game is the most important cultural industry. Not creative, cultural, this is the mention. In terms of budget, okay? The TV series it's another phenomenon. I discussed it with Pierluigi yesterday about the story of Korea and during the crisis. And what is changed really into the humans is that they don't want that a phenomena start and finish. No, they stay into the continuum. There is not the end, and there is not, there is not the beginning and not the end. So people stay in this wave, And this is a human condition that we have. And digital humanities is another very interesting point because you are the best example. I am here looking for that. But what is very complicated is that, for instance, the culturomics is not done by human scientists. It's done by engineers. So they are working on language, they are measuring, and doesn't matter if they know the topic or not. So if we continue in this way, the same things is also in science. If you think about the new trend that we have at university, the people are doing for the references, for the study for a master thesis, they use these tools, but they don't read the paper before. They read just the abstract, the keyword, and the title, and then select what they have to do. That means that the selection was done by the tools, not by you. Amen? And this is another point that maybe will be connected with Pierluigi, but in this sense is light, is not dark, And this is the role of museum, for instance, in legitimation process. In the era of digitalization, it's very important to try to convince the people that you are right. So the problem is the trust. Trust, this is the point. And the museum are useful to give the trust. So we have to take care about that. So a lot of study on reputation. And, for instance, I'm studying the reputation of Uffizi. There is 1 year, but I don't write until Kashmir have not decided what he want to do with Florence, because I come from Florence, and I want to give the results of my work until the end of this story, because I don't want to enter into this debate. But the connection between city reputation, museum reputation, director reputation is this question, So we find into the competition arena also museum and never succeed, something like that, because it was divided space, And this is another example of the complexity period of the thinker that also Pierluigi says about the behavioral, the individual behavioral, the public behavioral, the social behavior, and so on. In this era, complexity here, there is not so many boundaries anymore. Everything is overlapped. And so we have to take care who we are and what we want to do, I think, because the good governance is done by different people with different goals, and then the discussion and so on. This means democracy. So, goes to the list, culture as a tool for dealing with risk, and connected with the psychology dimension, so the second life and the second self. Maybe this is a very important psychological problem in negative terms. But in this moment, the discipline that is much more important in my vision is law. Because until to discuss about economy and so on and other, we need right, we need rules for this new kind of society, for algorithmic society. Until we don't have rules, it's impossible to manage the social network and so on, because, and so there is the example, the story of Shoshana Zuboff, okay, but not only this, but is the first story, no? Profiling, cybersecurity, taxation, use of force, and so on. This is a question now. If you don't solve and manage these questions that are fundamental rights, we cannot speak about economy, in my vision, you know. But we have also a lot of technical bias. Computer scientists underline the story of bias. There is the story of the husky dog mistake for dogs because the computer recognizes before the landscape than the animals. And this is a very old story, but we have to remember that nobody is able to distinguish at the first time things like this. And the risk of the loss of memory is another very important point for museum, because into the economic enhancement culture, you normally use you try to enhance for instance, David of Michelangelo, and not other opera, because there is a high economic value, a symbolic value. So at the others, what succeed at the others? What to do, decide to digitalize if you have few resources? Obviously, you prefer the opera with high value, no? Because you can have much more attractiveness in that sense. And what succeed for the others? So you have another inequality. This is the digital inequality in this sense. And the language became to be very, very important, because the meaning is the problem of nowadays. What does mean? The things, you know. And the machine increased to be anthropomorphic, and the woman much similar to machine. So it's not an evolution, it's an involution in the sense. So I finish with the digital inequalities. I put Squid Game because it's a game, but it's a dirty game, and it was done with the game for children, but it's the story of death. So, I mean, it's very strong, these things. And the reaction that you can have to the young people with this kind of game, always game, which kind of game, you know. And the celebrity is the imperative now. How many followers do you have? If you don't have followers, you doesn't exist. So the people want to exist. So they invent a profile, something. Who? There is not expert anymore. They're only the influencer that became the most important, no? And this is very dangerous, because there is not references about that. Who are you for doing that? I have, I don't know how many millions of followers. Please, we have to take care of that. The geography of discontent is one of the reasons of Brexit. So at the end, the people have a reaction, because not considered. So I conclude, in the era without theories and where numbers speak for themselves, technology has become a founding pillar of the algorithmic society. But, and it's me, in the era of uncertainty and complexity, the search of meaning is getting stronger. And we must not forget that what more than anything else distinguishes human from machine is imagination. And the physician Hidalgo says that the products at the end are crystal of imagination. So thank you so much to host me here.